Hey everyone, welcome to this video where we are going to build an awesome React dashboard app based off of Figma Design, where you're going to learn a lot of awesome stuff. We're going to set up the project from scratch, and we will be using TypeScript, CSS modules to style the app, Recharts to add a bar chart, make calculations with JavaScript, and eventually deploy the app to GitHub Pages so you can actually put this project in your portfolio or show it to your friends. If you'd like to see more of this type of content, I recommend you to subscribe to the channel. But having that said, let's jump right into it. So first of all, we need to import some assets that we're going to use for this project. And I'd like to ask you to create a new folder. I called it dashboard. And then you can run the following command. It is, let's take a look, git clone -- single -- branch. And then again, we have -- branch. And we want to pull the asset branch. And if I go to the repo right here, and I will put a link down in the description, you will see that this is the final code right here. But right here in assets, we actually have all the images that we're going to use. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to copy. Let's wait for this to load. There you go. Click right here and copy the HTTPS right here. And now we can paste that right here, press enter. And now that will clone the assets, as you will see when I now go to React dashboard and code into it. You will see that we have the images right here. And it's getting way too hot in here, so I'm just going to put my jacket off. The next step is to create a new React app. So I'm going to open up the terminal. And I will go back to the previous folder and I will say npx create React app. So we're going to use the create React app toolchain. I will call the app dashboard and I'm going to use the TypeScript template. So we'll say -- template TypeScript, and I'll get back to you once it's installed. So that's installed. By the way, if you didn't see what I actually entered, it's the line right here. So we have -- template space TypeScript. Okay. So I will get into that folder right now and I will restart Visual Studio Code. And now I want to copy the assets folder into the source folder. So I will right click. I will say Review in File Explorer. I go back to that React dashboard folder. I will copy the assets and I will put it right here in the source folder. Just like that. So now we have the assets in our project. Next up, we want to install Node.js. However, currently the most recent version of Node.js is not working properly with React. So you need to install version 4.14.1. Maybe if you're watching this video right now, that issue is solved, but I will go with the 4.14.1 version in this video. So you can install it by saying npm install Node.js. And if you want to install a specific version of a library, you can do it like this using the @ sign. So we're using 4.14.1, and I'll get back to you once it's installed. Next up, we want to remove some files that we don't need and clean up the app.tsx file a little bit. So we will not be needing the app.test.tsx file. We will also not need the logo.svg file. And then I go to app.tsx and I will just make sure that we have like an empty div right here. Or let's actually use some fragment tags and put like dashboard in here. Remove the logo and save that. So in this project, I will use a CSS reset file. So we can go and Google CSS reset. We will take the one from myerweb.com. I'll click right here. So we get like the raw text file. And I go to the index.tsx file and replace, or no, actually the index.css file, of course, and replace this with the reset file. So I would just say CSS reset, save. And the next styles we want to apply is into the app.css file right here. I'll just remove this. And for this project, we're going to use the Poppins font, which is a Google font, which you can use for free. So I will search for Poppins, the one right here. And let's just import all the like regular font weights. So I'll say extra light, regular 400, medium 500, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, and black. So we will not be using all of them in this project, but if you want to continue building, you can just use the different font weights. We'll click right here and import. I'll copy the snippet and I will remove those style tags like so. And the next thing is we want to set for the HTML, the font family to, we can copy this right here. So it's Poppins sans serif. There we go. Box sizing, we want to set that to border box, and overflow X should be hidden. And we can save the file. So now let's close this tab right here, close the app.css file, and now we can actually start the app. So we can say npm start. But as you will see, if we start the app in develop mode, we get an error. And in order to solve that, we need to install React types. So we can go right here and we can say npm install add types /react. And I'll get back to you once it's done. So now it's installed. I can run npm start again. I will actually, by the way, put it in a new terminal. Npm start. We can close this tab right here. And GitHub as well. And now you will see that the app will successfully load and show the dashboard text. So next up, let's open up the Figma design. I will put a link down in the description. And I can recommend you to create an account with Figma so you can actually, well, you can get some more functionality out of it. For example, when you click on a piece of text, you can see the properties and things like that. So let's take a closer look to the design. So of course we can start pretty much everywhere, but I think it would make most sense to start building that sidebar component first. So I will go back to my React app and go right here in the source folder. I'll create a new folder called components. And I will add a new folder right there called sidebar. And in that sidebar folder, I will create two files. The first one will be the sidebar.tsx component. And the second one will be the sidebar.module.scss file, just like that. So when I'm building apps with React, I usually like to first write the, well, you could say HTML, then add the styling to it, right? So first of all, take a look at this sidebar component and see what makes sense in terms of HTML. So let's zoom in a little bit. So first of all, this sidebar, if we would use like semantic HTML, would be an aside, right? So that would be the first tag we're using. And then inside that sidebar, we have like content, right? So that's all the content in here, which is another div. And then I will make a probably like a profile details div, which is this part right here. And then we will have another div where we have the image and, for example, a paragraph tag with the notification count. Down there below, we have another p tag with the name, the email. And then right here, we will have an unordered list of list items. And each list item is essentially a link to, well, all those pages. And they will have some conditional styling. So when you're, for example, are on the expenses page, then the expenses will be like white and the other ones are more like grayed out. So let's build that right now. So I will say export default function sidebar. And for now, let it return, for example, just the text sidebar. So it will check if everything is rendering correctly. So we'll go back to the app.tsx file. And instead of returning dashboard, I will now return the sidebar component. And now when I save this and I go back to the app, you will see it will say sidebar. So it's rendering as expected. Next up, I will import the sidebar.module.scss file. So I will say import styles from what was it again? Sidebar.module.scss, like that. So the first element we will have is the aside element. So I will say aside. I'll give it a class name called styles.sidebar. In there, we will have a div which contains all the content right here. So let's call it styles.sidebar content, for example. Then right here, we will have the profile details. So add a new div. I'll say styles.profile details. And in that profile details div, we will have another div, which is that div right here. So the profile image with the notifications. And we can say that is, for example, styles.profile image div, which will have an image, and we'll add the file in a few seconds. And let's call it Samantha for now. Of course, usually this would be something that is being fetched from the server. So this you can call this, for example, like the name of the user. So in our case, it's Samantha. So let's leave it like that. And I will import Samantha image from, and we can grab that from our assets folder. So it's right here in PNG. And then we want to grab samantha.png. And I will put that as the source. And then right here, we'll have another p tag. We can give that a class name of styles.notifications. And the count is, at least the number is 4. And that's pretty much it. So let's save it and take a look. And right now you see it says can't resolve sidebar.module.scss. And that is because I need to add the relative route, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now you can see we have the image and the notification count. So now I want to add the username and user email, which should be below that profile image div. So I'll go right here and I will say class name styles.username, which is Samantha. I'll just copy this, and this will be user email, which is samantha@email.com. Let's save it, take a look. Good. So the next part are the links, right? So right here we have our profile details. So I'll just add a white line right here. And this is actually a nav, so we can use the nav tag for that. And it will essentially render an unordered list of list items. So let's build that first list item. And because we're going to use some routing right here, I would like to ask you to install React Router DOM. So we can do that by saying npm install React Router DOM. And also add types/React Router DOM, because we're using TypeScript, of course. So I will install that and get back to you once it's done. Great, so as you can see, it's installed, and now we can use the link tag that comes from React Router DOM, as you can see. And we want to make the first link, which will link to dashboard. So we can say link to dashboard. And actually, it should be like this. So /dashboard. which will contain the dashboard content. And if this is the first time you're using React Router DOM, the reason we're not using anchor tags like this, and then we could say like href right here, this is something you can use in React applications, but you should generally do for all links that redirect you to another web page, right? So not your own page, but let's say another website you didn't create. And the reason we do that is if we would make a React app and only do the internal traffic between pages using anchor tags, we will run into some problems because the anchor tags will cause the app to actually refresh. So it will lose its state. And that's like the whole purpose of a single page application, is that you maintain state while you're navigating through the app. So that's why you want to use the link tags whenever you're like internally internally navigating throughout your app. So let's add some class names. So this will be styles.sidebar nav. This will be styles, oops. It's going wrong right here. There we go. Styles.sidebar nav item. And then right here for the actual link, we want to have some conditional styling, right? So like I said before, whenever we are on the expenses page, we actually want this to show up in white. So we can use some conditional class names for that. So I will go right here into the link opening tag, and then I will say class name is, and actually for this, we will need the use location hook that comes from React Router DOM. So I can say const location is use location. As you can see, we just imported that from React Router DOM. And right here, I will say location dot path name. If that equals to /dashboard, then I want it to have a class of styles dot sidebar. Let's take a look. Sidebar link active. And otherwise, it should have a class name called sidebar link. So let's save that. And actually, to keep things consistent, let's call this sidebar nav instead of just sidebar. Cool. So, well, right now we could essentially just copy and paste the list item, and then we can just change the names. Instead of dashboard, we can say expenses and wallets and so on, which in this case would be fine. You know, it's not really a problem. However, I'd like to show you another method. So what I would do right here, I will create a new variable. I will call it, sidebar nav links, which is an array. And right here, I will just put the names of the routes. So we have dashboard, we have expenses, we have wallets, we have summary, accounts, and settings. So what we could do right now, we can map over that array and essentially return a list item for each item in that array. So I could say sidebar navlinks dot map. So we take right here a sidebar navlink, and then we can return, and I will copy that whole list item, put it up here. And now we can say, instead of rendering dashboard, I just press Ctrl D, by the way. We can use the string interpolation. So I will add the slash, the /, and then right here, I can say this should be the sidebar navlink. And as you can see, it doesn't work for the 2 because it actually expects a curly bracket to be put right here. So we can solve that by putting them right there. Awesome. So if I right now would go back to the React app, you will see that we get an error. It says cannot read property location of undefined. And in order to have use location working, we need to wrap that sidebar component in the router component that comes from React Router DOM. So I will go to the index.tsx file, or actually the app.tsx file. There we go. And I will go up right here and I will say import. And I will say browser router as router from React Router DOM. And I will wrap that sidebar component inside the router component like this. Let's save it. And now you'll see it works. So let's go back to our app right here. So as you can see right now, it says dashboard everywhere, but when I hover over it, it's probably too small for you to read. I will just zoom in a little bit. No, it's still very small, but like down below in the left corner, you can see that we actually have different links it's like redirecting to. And you will see that also when I click right here, you will see that the URL is changing, but it still is displaying dashboard. So in order to solve that, we can remove this. And right here, I actually want to transform the sidebar nav link where the first letter should be capitalized. So I could say sidebar nav link dot char add 0 to uppercase, which is a function we should execute. And then we can add let's see, we could say plus sidebar nav link dot slice 1. And now you'll see whenever I save it, it will show all the names of the different routes, but it will capitalize the first letter. Of course, currently it doesn't look very good, so let's now move on to actually writing the CSS to make it look like this. So I'll just close these files and open up the sidebar.module.scss file. And the first class I will be targeting is the sidebar class. So it's a sidebar, and this is a, well, I assume it's like a sticky sidebar, right? So it's always like on the right side of the screen. So I will give it a position of, let's actually go back to the app so you can see the changes. Position absolute. And I want to make sure it sticks to the top. So I'll say top 0. It should stick to the left. And it should stick to the bottom. And it should have a width of, well, I think it's about, let's say it's about 25% of the screen. So we could say 25 view width. The background color should be, and in Figma you can then I'll just make sure that we see this again. And now when I click on the sidebar right here, let's take a look. I think it's actually right here, but now you'll see that the fill is 10-10-10, which is like the hex code. So I'll put that in right here. The text color should be white. All right, as you can see right here, we can keep that like as a default value. What you often see is what designers do is that instead of giving this like another color, they just lower the opacity, so that will give it like, well, in this case more like that gray look. Well, it is still has like the same color. It's still white. It's just the opacity that make it look like more grayish. And I also want to make sure that right here we keep everything nicely in line. So I will use Flexbox for that. So I will say display flex. I'll give it a flex direction of, and actually, let's comment this out for now. I'll just save this. So now you can see the changes. And let's do this. So we'll say flex direction column, just like that. Justify content. So we want to center the content, and then align items center as well. So as you can see right now, we kind of like put the content like in the middle. So that is our first class. So now let's focus on building like this block right here. Next up, I will add the sidebar content, which is essentially all the content in the sidebar. I'll give it a height of 100%, and I'll give it a display flex as well. And the flex direction will again be column because by default it's in a row. And I will say justify content space between. So that will now cause the essentially like the profile part and the nav links to be like pushed apart from each other. The next thing are like the profile details div. So it's like profile details. This should have like a margin top of, let's say, 2 rem. I think that's about right. So the reason that it looks a little different now is because, well, generally you would have like not such a small screen, but it would look like something like this, like screen 1080, as you can see. But to make it clear what's going on, I will just leave that for now. We'll go back to like the normal view later on. And we will have the profile image div, which is the div where that profile image lives, and also like that little notification count text lives as well. So that will get a position relative. If you haven't done this before, I will show you in a minute how that works. So then we will have our notifications class. Notifications, which is, let's take a look. Let's go back to sidebar. So this is actually like the count, right? So this is 4. And as you can see right here, that p tag is part, or actually is a child of the profile image div. And the reason I'm using position relative is that now I am able to essentially move that notification to the right upper corner relative to the profile image div. So let's first give it some width of, let's say, 2 rem, and some height as well, 2 rem. I will give it a border radius of 50%, right? Because what I right now did is I essentially say that I want this thing to be, well, have a width of 2 rem, a height of 2 rem, and give it a border radius of 50%. So that will make it a circle. And I will just make sure that we can see it. And it has a background color of, let's take a look in the Figma Design. Right, this thing right here. Save it. So now you will see that we have that 4, but now it's like not centered in the circle. So in order to do that, I can say display flex, justify content, center, align items, center, and that will now push it in the middle. That's what I like so much about Flexbox. It, you know, especially if you want to center things or just, you know, generally position things, Flexbox is most of the time the answer to solving your problem. So next up, we want to give it a position of absolute. And as you can see right now, it will kind of like overlap the name and the email. In order to prevent that, we're going to push it like on like the right upper corner. So I will say top should have a should be, for example, like -12 pixels, and the right side should have 100 pixels. And as you can see right now, that just caused the notification like circle move to the right upper corner of the div. So I can show it to you. If I click right here on that notifications class, let's make this a little bigger so you can see it. So you will see that when I change the value, I can just double click it and move the scroll wheel on my mouse. You will see that we're actually able to move this thing, and the same goes for like on the horizontal axis. You can do it like this, but these are, I think, the best values to put it as how it looks like in the design. And actually, because we don't need a lot of screen space right now for the CSS, I'll just make sure that I move this a little bit so you can see what's going on. Remove this as well. So the next thing is the username. So we'll say username, which has like a margin top of 1 rem. And let's take a look in the Figma Design what the properties are for the name. So right here it says font weight 600 and font size 30 pixels. So I can actually copy this and paste that right here. Oops. Nice. And then we have the user email, which has a margin top of, well, let's take a look. I think that's about 1 rem as well. And now we want to take a look, and like what I said before about the opacity, right here, the text, let's see. As you can see right here, they set the opacity to 0.6. So we can do that as well. Opacity 0.6. Boom. And now you get like that grayish color. The next thing we want to focus on is that navbar div right here. So I will say sidebar nav. It has like a margin top of -8 rem and a margin bottom of 3 rem, like that. And now we can style each individual nav item right here. So I will say sidebar nav item has like a margin of 2 rem and a 0 on the left and right side. And the last thing we want to style is the actual link itself, where we also have like the conditional styling. So this is a sidebar nav link. So we don't want to have any text decoration. So we'll set the text decoration to none, so we don't get like that underline that's in there by default. I will say outline none. The color should be white. Oops, that's columns. We need to have color like that. The opacity should be 0.5. So we got like that light color. The font size is 25 pixels and the font weight is about 600. I think 500 actually. Yep. And then right here we can make use of the conditional styling class, because we had sidebar nav link and sidebar nav link active. So when I say and active, I have to extend. So that will essentially mean that we're taking over the same properties as the sidebar nav link. So I will say extend sidebar nav link like that. And I can set the opacity to 1. Boom. And now you see that whenever we click on a link, it will like conditionally render the nav links essentially, right? So I'll click on Ctrl-0 right here, and now when I open it up in like a normal like 1080 screen, it looks pretty good. But I think I used the wrong property right here, because I used space between for the sidebar content. If we use space around, it will actually space the content pretty much like around all the like especially around the space it has available. So now when I like, because right now I'm zoomed in, I'm gonna click Ctrl-0 and I open up a screen that's 1080. There we go. Now you'll see it is pretty much identical to the design. Of course, it looks a little different because right here they used a, I think it's like a 1440 pixel wide screen. So if I do this 1440, there we go. That looks a lot better. However, as you can see, we currently have a bug in the code, because it says warning, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. And this is about the sidebar nav links. So let's actually go to the sidebar component. I'll just make the screen a little bigger. And what we want to do is for every list item, we can add a key of the sidebar nav link. And that will, if I refresh, we'll get rid of the error. So next up, we want to create the expenses page with the chart and all these things. So let's do that. So I'll just close these files right here. And in the source folder, I will make another folder called pages. And in that pages folder, I'm going to make actually another folder called expenses. And then in that expenses folder, we want to have a expenses.tsx component and a, let's take a look, expenses.module.scss file. So first of all, we're going to focus on like the HTML part, you could say. How I look at this is that we have like the right side, which is the page. And in the page, we have a sort of card component, or actually a card, which has like a left side. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but this right here is a little bit lighter in terms of the background color, and the right side is a little darker. So you have like a left and a right side. So let's first start off with making like the header right here. So this is essentially a header where we have like the title, we have the person images, and then we have like the sort of add icon right here, right? So I'm going to make that component. So I will say export default function expenses, and I will say return. All right, so first of all, we have the well, the main part of the app, right? So we have like a main tag, which has a class name, and before that, let's actually import the styles. So I will say import styles from expenses.module.scss. So class name is styles.expenses. And then in that main, we have like a div. So I can say div with a class name, and let's call it expenses card. And then right there, we have like I said before, a left side and a right side. So we could use, for example, the section element for that. Styles, and let's call this expenses overview. So the right side is what we're going to do next, but let's first focus on like this left side right here. And then right there in that section, we have like the header. So I could say make a new div with a class name of styles.expenses header. And in that header, we're going to have the expenses title. So I can say expenses title, which says expenses. And then we have like another div right here, right? So that is where all the images and that button lives. So let's call it styles. Let's do like expenses actions. And then that expenses action div, which are like these items, is like, well, let's say we have like the images and the button. So we can make another div in here, class name, styles, and let's call this like person images, something like that. And that's where we then have like 3 images. So, I'll just call it person 1 for now. So I have like those 3 images, and then that's in this div, and then in the expenses actions, because we're going to have like a left and a right side. So this is our left side, and down below here, we will have like a, well, this is more like a button, right? Sort of add button. But in that button, we have like an image which says add. So now let's import the images. So we have like import, well, let's do like person 1 from assets PNG person 1. I'll just copy and paste this and change it. Person 2, person 3, 2, 3. Now right here in source, I will say that this is then person 1, person 2, person 3, like that. And this is like the add icon. So import, let's call it add icon from SVG. It is it actually, no, I think it's in the PNG folder. Let's take a look. There we go, add icon. All right, add icon. Well, let's save that and take a look if things are showing up. And of course, right now it's not showing up because we need to import the expenses component in our app. So say expenses right here. And now when I save it, you will still not see what we have made right here. But that's because we essentially our sidebar is overlapping the expenses component. But when I go right here and I remove the aside element, you will see that right there we have our content. So let's actually add some styles to the expenses class, so we are actually able to see this without every time having to remove the aside. So I'll go to the expenses module. I just close up the app.tsx file, and then right here we have our expenses class name, and we can say that this has a position of absolute, top 0, and this time it's on like the right side. So I will say right 0, bottom 0, and let's give it like a width of 75 view width. So now you can see we essentially push the content to the right side. So now when I refresh, you will see that on the left we have our sidebar, and on the right we have our expenses component. So then let's move on to the next part. So we will have like the date range and that chart right here. So let's create that, which is below the header. So right here we have the header, and then right here we have like another paragraph tag, and let's call that, or give that a class of styles dot date range, and it says March 1st till March 25th, 2020, like that. Now for the chart, we are going to use a library called Recharts, which is very popular. I'll just go to their documentation. It's very good. You have like many different charts you can choose from. So in order to install it, we need to run npm install recharts. So I will do that, and I'll get back to you once that's done. All right, so now that it is installed, let's take a look at some of the examples, and let's make the page a little bigger so you can see what's going on. So right here you see some examples, right? And you have like many different examples you can choose from, but this thing right here is called a bar chart, and I'm going to grab the tiny bar chart as like our starting point. So as you can see right here, we can essentially copy this stuff right here. So I will copy the responsive container, and I will put that like right here. And then right here we have like the data, which seems to be an array of objects. Let's copy that as well. I'll paste that right there. And right here we have the import statement. Like so, but as you can see, some of the elements are not used, so I can remove that. Cool. I'll just fold this or collapse this so we have a bit more space. And as you can see right now, even when I refresh the app, you will not see the bar chart popping up. And in order to prevent this, we can say that the responsive container should have a min height of 9 view height, for example. So now you will see the tiny bar chart popping up. So we want to add a couple of things. So first of all, right here we have like the bar component. And the first thing I want to change is the color. So when I go to our Figma design, so this is a little tricky with Figma because right here you see it has a fill, but it's like a completely different color. It's actually this color right here. But you can see that they set a layer with a visibility of 20%. So what we can do in that case, we can just copy that color code like so. And what I then like to do is to click right here. So you get the RGB value. And then you can change it into RGBA. And then you can pass the opacity, so which is 20%. So we can say .2. And now when I save it and go to the app, you will see we have the same color. So that is the first thing we want to change. Now we want to add some functionality because I think the idea is that whenever you hover over the individual bar, you should have like the color highlight and probably also like a small box with the actual value. So what I can do is I can go in here and I will actually map over that data array. So I'll say data.map, and then we have, first of all, we have an entry and we have an index value. And what we essentially want to do is we want to return the a cell, which this is actually imported from Recharts itself. So we want to import a cell, which is, by the way, a self-closing tag. And in the cell, we want to say cursor is pointer. So now when I save it, you will see that, and I go out of this, you'll see we have like this pointer for every bar. The next thing we want to add is the fill color, because essentially we want to make sure that whenever we hover over an individual bar, the color changes. So we can do some conditional styling here. And I can say if the index is equal to the active index, and for this we need to declare a useState hook. So I'll go up here and I will say const active index and set active index useState. Let's say by default it's 0. And now I can say, so if the index is equal to the active index, we want to change the color to, well, let's take a look again, or actually it's this color right here. So it's this RGBA color, but it is without the opacity. So as you can see right here, this can just be RGB without the .2, and then right here we will have the same as we have right here. Okay, and of course we need to add a function so we can update that active index, and we can do that by adding a function to that bar component. So right here, I will add a on mouse over function. I'll call it on mouse over. So we can go all the way up here, create that function. So it's a const on mouse over our arrow function. And actually we can do this in a even cleaner way. So that on mouse over will take data, which for now, let's say is any, because it doesn't really matter for, in this case, what on mouse over is receiving, because we're not actually using data. And we'll have index, which is a number. And that's actually the value that we will be using. And then we can say set active index to index, like that. So now when we go to our React app, you can see now whenever I hover over a bar, it will actually update the index. Now we also want to add a key prop to the cell, because if we go over to console, maybe you have to refresh it because it will not always show up. But it says each warning or each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So we can go right here and we can say that the key is, well, like generally speaking, you don't want to use the index. For now, we're going to use it anyway, because most of the time a server will respond with like a unique ID probably for each of those items. But for now, let's just use index. So now when I refresh, you will see that that error is gone. And to make this chart, this bar chart, like look a little bit more similar compared to the one we have right here, let's actually duplicate the entries like twice. So I'll just copy this and I'll just copy it twice. And then I can collapse our data. So we have like this chart, which looks pretty good. So let's move on with the rest of the app. So the next part we want to focus on is this right here. So we have this header with essentially a paragraph tag and a button. So I will go right here. I will make a new div. I'll give it a class name of styles.expenses overview header. And then in that div, we'll have a p tag with another class name called styles. Let's call this like expenses overview title. Right here it says today. And then we have a button with in there an image. And we could, for example, say options. So let's also import that that thing. I'm not sure if it's an FCG or a PNG, but we'll find out. Import, let's call it option icon from assets, SVG. It's not this one. It's then probably a PNG. Let's take a look. Can I find it? It's probably manual icon. Let's take a look. Yeah, there we go. That's our icon. So that's the header. And then the next part are essentially the individual expenses. And how I look at this is that essentially we have like a unordered list of list items right here. So we'll have an unordered list. And let's first create like one list item. Let's give that a class name of expense item. Styles.expense item, of course. And then in there we have like a left side and we have a right side. And in that left side we have like this div with the icon in it. And then we have like another div where we have these two p tags with probably a span or not. No, I don't think so. No, this is like the same kind of text. So right here in list item, I will create a new div. I will call this class name styles dot expense item left. There we'll have another class. And let's say that that is expense item div. So that's the div right here, and that essentially has the icon in there. So we have like an image, and for now we can call it like cart, and let's import that card icon. Import cart icon from assets svg. Let's take a look. Yeah, there we go, card icon. So I'm going to put that in there, and let's make the let's focus on the details right now. So that is not part of the expense item div, but it is in that left, like in that left div. So this part right here. So let's make a new div right here. I'll give it a class name, expense item details. And then in there we will have the, we'll actually have two p tags. The first one will be the expense item title. And let's for now say grocery. And the second one is like the time and location. So I will say expense item time. And then in there we have the time, and then we have like this dot. Let me Google. I think it's like alt code bullet point. Yeah, there we go. Circle bullet. This is the one I need. Let's put that right here. And then we have the location. Like that. Let's save it. Let's take a look. All right, good stuff. So of course we're going to style that. That's what we're actually going to do after we've put like the elements right here as well. And then we're going to style it because right now it's starting to look like a mess. So we have that p tag, and that is almost it. But the last thing, of course, is the price, and that's not part of that expense item left. So that should go down below here. And then this is like the expense item styles dot expense item price, which is minus 32.80. All right, let's take a look. If it's in there, awesome. So now let's actually style this to make sure that it looks good. And of course, right now we've only been focusing on the left side. So later on, we're going to make sure that it is not like it takes the full width, which it probably is going to do right now. But it doesn't really matter. So let's focus on the expenses class first, because it should of course have the same background, which has a background color of 10 just like that. And then we can say display flex line items center, and justify content center as well. So that will make sure that if we're going to add like the next section, which is on the right side, the content is like properly aligned. So next up we have the expense card, or actually expenses card. right here, which has a background color of white. It has a width of 95%, a height of 95%, and it has a border radius of, let's take a look. Border radius of 30 pixels. So now when I save this, you will see we have like this card. Of course, not everything is positioned perfectly. Let's close this for now. But well, at least we have that card right now. And that card should also take a display flex. And now, of course, that's going to like grow our chart. So to prevent this, I'll actually comment this out. We're going to bring that in later. We'll refresh. There we go. Well, first of all, we're going to focus on that left side. So this part right here. And I think this is about like probably like 65% of like the total available width. So of this whole card. So I will say expense overview has a width of 65%. And it has a padding of 5 rem. And I think we made a typo. I think this should be expenses overview. Yeah, there we go. Then we have the title right here. Or actually, let me think. We have the, yeah, we do have the header, but of course we first want to style that. So we're going to use Flexbox so we can make sure that expenses on the left side and the icons are on the right side. So I will say expenses header. That will take the display flex property, and that will make sure, as you can see, that they are now like aligned in a row position. And now I want to make sure that they are pushed like to the outside. So to do that, I can use justify content space between. There we go. So now it has pushed both items to the left and right side. Next up, we have our expenses title. Let's take a look how that is styled. So it has a font size of 40 pixels and a font weight of 600. Let's copy it, paste that, boom, just like that. Now we want to style the expense actions, right? So that's this part right here. So I will say expenses actions. And that will also take a display flex property. So it's aligned on the same row. And then I can say justify content, space between. And I will say align items center. That will make sure that these, like both the images and the button will be aligned on a center. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we have these images. And as you can see right here, they're kind of like this image is overlapping this one, and this one is overlapping that image. And we can, by the way, use this or do this by using Z index values, as I will show you now. So we'll have like the first person, person 1, and let's give that a position of relative left minus 73% and a Z index of 3. And now I will actually copy this twice. So we also have person 2 and person 3. And this will take, well, let's say 83%. So like 10% more to the to the left side. And this one will be 93. And then respectively, also the Z index value should be 3, 2, and 1. And let's save it. There we go. But as you can see right now, nothing has changed. And I think that is because I forgot to put the class names in here for the images. Let's take a look. Yeah, there we go. So let's actually add the class names. So this will be styles person1. And just copy and paste this. But of course, this is person2 and this is person3. So now I've saved it, and let's take a look what went wrong right here, because I can't see the third person. Let's open up the DevTools. So person3 is now 933. That's a little bit too much. Let's make it 93. Awesome. So now you can see that the images are correctly overlapping each other, and you can play with this yourself. So if you, for example, click on an image, you can, well, right here we have like the left property. You can actually move that, as you can see. And you can also see that when I change the Z index value, it will actually move forward. And now if I move it back to like a little bit more left, you will see it will be below that person1 image. But when I bring the Z index down to actually 1, you will see it will actually, no, actually not to 1, but add it like have it to 3, it will actually overlap person1. So that's why this is working. So let's refresh it like so. Awesome. And now the add icon, and give that a cursor pointer. So what that will do, actually before I save it, let's take a look. So now when I hover over this, you don't see that, you know, the mouse is just like the cursor is just the same. So what I actually want to have is like that pointer, well, that like that little hand, and we can do that by saying cursor pointer. And now when I save it, and I think also here I forgot to add the class. So let's do that. Class name styles dot add icon. Now you'll see when I hover over it, you will see the small hand popping up. And let's give it some margin left off, because now there's like too much margin. Let's give it like some margin left, some negative margin, maybe like 6 rem. That will probably bring it a little closer. Now I want to actually get rid of the default browser styling of the button. So what I can do right here is I can actually go back to my index.css file. And I'm not sure if they're actually targeting button right here. No. But I can just go down here, say button, and I will say all and set. Boom. And that will get rid of the the default button styling. But it, you know, semantically, this is correct because there's actually a button. So also for like screen readers or like at least people that use screen readers, this will show up like properly, like, hey, this is actually a button, right? Which indicates that there is something you can interact with. All right, so the next thing is, let's see, we have the add icon. Let's style the date range right here. So we have date range. Let's give that some margin top, 1 rem. And let's take a look. I think they did the same right here, that they just changed like the opacity. Yeah, as you can see, they have like opacity of 0.5. Opacity 0.5. And I will give it some margin bottom as well, 2 rem. Let's take a look. All right, not too bad. And now let's actually style this part right here. And the nice thing is that we are actually going to like map over a couple of like fake arrays with filled with data, which you can find down in the description. I got a small snippet which you can essentially copy and paste. So so this part we will finish it relatively quickly. So let's style the expenses overview header. So this thing right here. So like I said before, we're going to use Flexbox for that. So it will be called expenses overview header. Let's give it some margin top, 3 rem. I will give it some display flex. So that will put it on a row. And then I will say justify content. And again, we'll go for between. So it will push the items to the outside. Align items center. So that will make sure that the paragraph tag and the icon right here are centered. And let's take a look. Let's do should have a little bit padding on the bottom as well. We can say padding bottom, because and the reason I'm adding some padding is, as you can see right here, we have like a horizontal line. So we can actually say that we only want to have like a border, like a bottom border in that div. And by setting some padding, we essentially create some distance between like the title and the icon, so it will appear right down here and like not right here above. Awesome. So I will give it a border bottom of let's say 1 pixel, just a very thin line. It's solid, and the color should be oh, as you can see, it already says it right here. Just copy this. Let's actually just copy this like that. So now you will see we have a border. Oh, that's because it changed it to border, not border bottom. So let's change this back to border bottom. And now you'll see we have like that horizontal line right here. Might have to increase the padding a little bit, maybe to like 1 rem. I think, yeah, that looks better. So let's style the title. So we'll have expenses overview title, which has a font size of 18 pixels. But I think it also should have like a little bit of weight added to it. Let's say font weight 500. Yeah, I think that's about right. Maybe 600. Let's try 600. Yeah, I think that looks better. All right, so now let's make this item right here, or actually style it. So we have the expense item, and that's essentially, well, we have like a left part and a right part. So also there we're going to use Flexbox. So I will say expense item. Let's give it some margin. Let's say 1 rem, because there's like some space between all the list items, but also there's some space between the header. And yeah, in order to make sure that we are pushing the content from left to right, I can say display flex, justify content between, and align items center. So that will now push the price to the right side. So now let's focus on the left side. So this part right here. We're going to have a expense. What was it called again? It's down here. Expense item left. Expense item left. Like that. And that will take display flex and align items center. So as you can see right now, that will put the items well, pretty much in line with each other. And then we have the expense item div. So that is the like the circle right here with the icon in there. So I will give it some width and some height. So it's like the same as what we did with the notification. So we'll give it some width. Let's say 48 pixels. Same goes for height. Let's give it some border radius of 50%. And of course, we need to add some background color for now. But before I'm going to add the background color right here, because we're going to loop over the data that you can import, which we're going to do in a couple of minutes, I'm actually going to use inline styles because we're going to grab those colors from the data array, which will look, well, pretty similar to this. So what I will do is right here in the expense item div, we have our class name, but I will also add some inline styles, and we can do that by saying style, having like these double curly brackets, and I can say background color. Well, let's say blue for now. There we go. So now you also see that image is appearing, but we want that actually to be centered. So in order to do that, we have to say display flex, justify content center, align items, center. Boom. Flexbox, you gotta love it. I use it like, well, as you can see, so often, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I still like it. I've done this like thousands and thousands of times, but every time it brings a little bit of joy because it works so well and it's so easy to use. Cool. So we have the expense item div. The next thing we want to start is the expense item details. Expense item details. We want to make sure that there's a little bit distance between both of these. So we'll give that some margin left of 1 rem, like so. And let's continue and style the title. So this will be the expense item title. Font size is just default, at least the default size, and then the font weight is 500. There we go. All right, and I think we also need to add a little bit of margin, like margin bottom. I think margin bottom. Let's do 0.5 rem. And now let's style this. So we have the expense item. What was it? Time. And I think does it have font weight? It probably has. Probably has. Let's actually take a look. It has, does that font weight? I can't see it, but it definitely looks, well, let's remove it. Let's take a look. No, I think indeed it's without the font weight. And as you can see, it has like opacity of 0.5. So opacity 0.5. Good, good, good. And now the last thing we want to style is the price. So we have expense item price. Let's go to Figma. Font weight 600, font size just stays like the same. So now we have the price as well. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. So just to give you an idea, if I would copy over this list item, you will see that we'll actually have 2 list items right here. The only thing we're going to do right now, because it would take, well, like quite a bit of time if we would have to like hard code all the values. And of course, in like a real world scenario, this data would be fetched from an API. So what I will be doing, and I will put, like I said before, a link down in the description. It's called snippets, and there you can find, because we will be using more of these snippets, and that's where you will actually find the data that I'm going to add right now. So it's called today expenses. It's this right here. And as you can see right here, we already imported the card icon, but here we got an error because it's missing the icon. So let's actually import those. So I will say import, what is it? Transport icon from assets, SVG, transport icon, and import the house icon from SVG house icon, just like that. And of course, now the today expenses are not used, so we're going to map over the today expenses to actually render these list items. So as you can see, every item contains like an ID, which we can use for the unique key property, so we don't get like the error in the console. And it contains like the expense name, the time, the location, the price, the icon it's using, and the icon background color. And as you can see, we got the colors right here. So I will go down here under the unordered list, and I will say today expenses.map. We're going to map over it. We'll take an expense, and we want to return a list item. So this whole block of code. Let's save it for now. And now you'll see we see 3 of the same list items, but of course we need to change the values. So let's first pass that key property. So that will be expense.id. Like that. The background color should be expense.icon background color. The alt name of the icon, we can just say that it is expense dot, let's just give it like the expense name. And the same goes for here. So instead of grocery, we'll have expense dot the expense name. Right here we have the time. Expense dot time. And here we have the location. So expense dot location. And then right here we have the price. Expense dot price. So now when I save it, you will see we actually have all the values. Now, as you can see right here, we actually want to make sure that every value has like, well, it's not very consistent in the design as well, because, well, it is consistent, but they have like 3 values behind the dot. I'm not quite sure why they did that. So let's just keep it at 2. So in order to prevent that from happening and showing up like this, because if we go back and scroll up a little bit, you will see that the server sometimes, sometimes what a server responds to the client is not always consistent, because right here you see we have like 0.8, 0.75. So if you encounter these kind of problems in a real world application that you're building, you can use JavaScript, and we can say expense.price dot to fixed and pass it a value of 2, and now you will see it will show 2 digits after the decimal point. So we also have like the well, this is today, and then right here we have like another part which is essentially the same. So let's actually copy over this part right here, so including that div, and we have the unordered list. So just copy this, and right here I will change it to Monday 23 March 2020, and let's take a look. Yeah, so now instead of mapping over the today expenses, you want to map over another array, which you can also find in the file I linked down to below, and we'll copy right now, or actually paste. So this is called the previous expenses. So I will collapse those as well. But now instead of mapping over the today expenses, we're wanting to map over the previous expenses. And now when I go back to the app, you will see it will show up correctly. Now, of course, in a real world application, you would not like hard code the you know, like the day and date as well. But you know, this video is more focused on, you know, learning some basic React things along with learning how to style with CSS modules. So I'm not worried too much about that. So, but you know, so far so good. I think, oh, I think we actually need to add the cursor pointer right here as well. What was it called again? We have like the button, image, option, icon. So I will give it a class name. Let's call it expands option. And we need to add the same class to the like the today part right here. Expense option, which is under overview title, There we go. So I also recommend you, you know, like whenever you're making a CSS file, make sure that, you know, the order is pretty much the same as your HTML, right? So that makes it very easy to find classes. So let's give that a cursor pointer. Awesome. So now let's focus on the right side of our card. So on this part right here. So I'll go back to the TSX file, and the left part was like a section. So now we're going to make another section, which is the right part. I'll give it a class name of money overview. Like that. And then we have a p tag right here. Money overview title. Of course, that should be styles.money overview title, where I think it should actually be where did your money go? Cool. So as you can see right here, we also have like an unordered list of list items. So I will say, I will add the unordered list element and a list element right here. In that list item, we will have two divs. So we have like the div with the name of the like the category and the price, and then down below we'll have like a bar with the well, with the amount of if I look at this, I imagine that these bars should actually represent the total amount, or at least a part of the total expenses, right? So let's say your food and drinks expenses were like 10% of the total amount, then like one like 10% of that bar should be filled. So I will add a div, and we'll give that a class name of let's see, spent category. And for the list item, we don't need classes for now, I think, so I'll just leave that. And then we have a p tag with the styles.spent category name, which is, well, let's do food and drinks. And we have another class, is the spent category price, which is 872.40. So that's like our first, I like the header right here, and then down below we have the bar. So we have another div, and I will give that a class name of styles dot spend category bar or something like that. And it's actually pretty easy to style this, so to have like that colored bar inside that other bar. And we will use another div for that, and I will show you in a minute when we go over and do the styling how it works. But we'll have another div, and I will give it a class name of styles dot spend category colored bar, something like that. Yes. So now when I go here, you will see that it actually pushed the content down below, and that is because we commented out the display flex in the expenses card. So when I uncomment this, it will actually cause the left section and right section to be on the position in a row. Now you can see that the chart is just way too big, and we can solve that because we set min height, but we can just change that to a height right now. And we can actually also remove the bar chart fixed width and height like that. And we could say like 9% right here, 9%. There we go. So now you see we have our chart, and this content has been, well, essentially moved to the right side. So let's go all the way down. Let's target the right section, which we called money overview. So that is going to have a width of 35%, right? Because the other part was, like the left section was 65%. And let's give that a background color, because if you can see right here in the design, this is like a white background color, but this is like a little bit like grayish color. So right here you can see the background color. Perfect. Now what you can see right here is that our card initially had like rounded borders on like all the well, essentially all the sides. So top left, top right, bottom left. But the money overview part is now currently overriding the border, right? So we can prevent this, and this kind of like works the same as you have, for example, with the margin or the padding property. So if we use margin, we essentially target first like the top, then the right, then the bottom, then the left. If we use the border radius property, we can target in like the order of top left, top right, bottom left. So that's why I will say border radius. So you want to have 0 in the top left. We want to have 50 pixels in the bottom, in the top right, 50 pixels on the bottom right, and then 0 on the bottom left. So now when I save it, you will see we have our border radius back. And we also want to set essentially the same padding as we had right here. So I'll say padding, top and bottom will be 5 rem, left and right will be 2 rem. Let's take a look. Padding bottom. No, of course this should be just padding. There we go. So now let's add some styles to the title, which is money overview title. Let's see, font size 28 pixels. It also seems to be a little bit more font weight. Let's do font weight 400. Or actually, that's regular. Let's do 500. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, because currently our app is not looking very good, but that's because we didn't make the app responsive. So especially if I will like shrink down the screen, you will see that it will start to look worse and worse. So since we actually made a screen for like a 1440 screen, you can see right now this is how it would really look like. So I think that's about good. Yeah, so also I want to add some margin bottom of like 3 rem. Let's take a look. Yeah, something like that. All right, so the next thing we want to style is the money, or actually the spend category name. So which is spend category name. Font weight 500, font size 13 pixels. I think for this design, that's it's like a little small, isn't it? Let's keep it like at 16 for now, right? Because we don't have like any designers that are going to yell at us because we use like the wrong font size. I think this looks a little better and it's easier to read. And then we have the price, of course. So we have spend category price, which seems to be completely normal, as in that it doesn't have like any specific font sizes or font weight, so we can keep that pretty much by default. But of course, when we go right here, we have the spend category, so we want to style that because we want to use Flexbox to have the title and the price to the left and right side. So spend category will be display flex. So as you will see, that will push it on a row, and then we can use the justify content between, so it's pushed to the left and right side. So let's move on to styling these bars right here. So we will have spend category bar, which has a height of 5 pixels, and it should have like a width of 100%. And then we want to set a background color, this one right here, and we want to give it a position relative, and I will show you in a minute why we do this. And let's give it a bit of border radius, like as it says right here, 5 pixels, and some margin to the bottom as well. So margin bottom to rem. So now you will see we have this this bar right here. Actually, let's also add some margin top. Margin top 1 rem, I think. Yeah. So now we want to focus on the colored bar right here. So we can pretty much just copy this class right here, but instead of spend category bar, of course, we have to change it to spend category colored bar. And let's take a look. So instead of the background color, it should have this greenish color. And instead of position relative, it should take position absolute. Border radius 5 pixels. We can remove the margins. And now you will see, because the width is 100%, the entire bar is filled with the green color. But if I take it to, for example, 10%, you will see only 10% of that bar gets filled, and the same goes for 50%. So, and the reason we use position, absolute, and relative right here, which is essentially the same as what we did right here, is that currently the colored bar is essentially positioned according to where spend category bar lives, which is great, because if we, for example, increase like the margin on the top right here, the spend category colored bar will actually move with the spend category bar. So that is a great use case for relative and absolute positioning. So now what we want to do is we want to make a calculation we essentially want to use JavaScript to calculate what the total amount of expenses are. And then we want to determine like how much percent each category is of like the total expenses, and then adjust like the width of the bar based on that. So before we do that, I'd like you to copy the expenses, like I think it's called money expenses, which I will paste right now. So we will, well, do the same as what we did right here. We will just loop over the items to return the list items right here. Right here we have the spend categories. And I'm not sure why that's in here. Let's remove that. And I will go all the way down. And I will do the same as like what we did before. So we will map over the spend categories. So we take in a category and return the entire list item. So let's pass the key property, which is the category.id. And then right here, we will have the category.name, or well, not that name, but that category which contains the name. And then right here, we will have category.price. And also right here, we can do the same thing. So we can say to fixed and pass the value number 2. So we will have 2 digits after the decimal point. So as you can see right now, everything is, all the bars are the same. So what we can do is we can use inline styling to calculate, do the calculation and determine how much width each category item should take. So I'm going to remove this right here, the width property, because we're going to use like inline styles, which should actually go right here in the colored bar. So I will say style, and we want to set the width property. Oops, I have to do this, width. And what it expects right here is as well, in case we want to set percentages, for example, if I right now say, for example, 25%, you will see it will work. So I'm going to use string interpolation so we can calculate this value and then add the percent to it. So we want to do the following. We want to take the category.price. I'll just put this on a new line to make it extra clear. And we want to divide that by the total amount, or like the total, pretty much the sum of prices we have right here, right? So in our spend categories, we want to calculate the total amount in that array. And we can use that by using the reduce method. So I will say spend categories dot reduce. So we're going to use the reduce method to calculate the total amount of all the prices in the spend categories. And that will take in an accumulator and a current value. Of course, you can name this however you want, but I'll just stick with this for now. And we want to return the sum of the accumulator plus the current value dot price. And of course, we want to convert that into a percentage. So right here, I'm going to add a percentage. And now you will see that it says that the right-hand side should be of type any number or big int, or like any enum type. So in order to prevent this, we can simply add like a default, or like you could say a start value to count from, which is 0, just like that. And now when I save the file, you will see that we have like very small little green bars right here. And when I click on the spend category bar right here, and I go down, you see that right here, you see our inline style, and now it's set to 0.12%. But of course, we want to take the percentage and make like a whole number out of it. So we can simply multiply it by 100 to do that. So I will just wrap these in parentheses, and right here I will say multiplied by 100, and now you will see that we have like all the bars filled up. So if we would like put together all these green bars, then eventually it would fill like one bar. So as you can see right here, shopping is definitely the category that had like the highest it's like the highest expense category in terms of money, and you can see that the bar is also well, the largest compared to all the other ones. All right, so we're almost done. The last thing we should make is the like this element right here. So let's start writing the well, let's say HTML for it. So that will be in the same section, but it will not be part of that unordered list. So I will put it like down here. And first of all, we'll have a div, and I'll give it a class of styles.money div, or what did it say? Let's call it save money div. Something like that. And then it's essentially a div with like two images that kind of like pop out of the like the div itself. So we can again use relative and absolute positioning for that. So I will just add these images. Image. So the first is an image of some boxes, and the second one of a plant. Let's first start importing those images. So I'll say import boxes image. Well, I'll just do boxes from I think it's a PNG. There we go, boxes. And we want to have also one for the plant. To be extra sure if plant is in there, let's take a look. Yeah. Boxes, plant. And let's also add a class name. So I will call it styles dot save money. Actually, let's just do boxes. And change this into plant. Okay. So then we have the paragraph tag right here, the title, a small like placeholder, text, and a button. So right here, we will have the save more money text. Give it a class name of styles dot save money title. And then we have like another p tag. So if you want to, as you can see right here, they use like this lorem ipsum kind of text. You could do something like this, lorem, and then hit tab. But because we're working with this Figma design, if you want to copy this text, you can just control click on the text itself. And then if you go to like the inspect tab right here, you can see the content, and you can simply copy it by clicking here. So this is like the save money like info. And then we also have a button, which has a type of button. It's just a regular button. And it says view tips. Let's also give it a class name, styles.save money button. And actually, most of the time, if you're building these kind of apps, you have like a sort of design system. So you have like certain components that are like buttons and inputs, and you will use them throughout the app. So instead of calling this save money button, let's assume that this is just like the primary button of the application. So I will just give it a class of button. Let's save it and take a look if it's showing up. Awesome. So now let's go over to styling this. So as you can see in the design, that div doesn't take up like the full width of the right section. So we can give it, let's say, a width of, by the way, we first have to enter the class, of course. So this is the save money div. Let's give it a width of 70% and a let's make sure that's also centered, because right now it would be like on the left side, so we want to have it centered. So I will say margin 0 auto. It should have some background color as well. Which is this color right here. And let's give it a bit of margin on the top as well. Margin top 5 rem. Also should have a little bit of padding, of course, because we, as you can see right here, there's some padding between like the content that is in the div. So let's give it padding of 2 rem. Let's take a look at how that looks like. So right now we're doing we have like a smaller screen. So because we're making it for like a 1440 screen, I will resize. So as you can see, this is how it looks like now. So it also has some border radius, and that seems to be 15 pixels. So border radius 15 pixels, like that. And we also want to use like the relative and absolute positioning for the images right here. So I will give this a position relative, just like that. So now let's make sure that we get the boxes like right up here and that planned like up right there. So let's start with boxes. I'll give this a position absolute, so that will now like put it like relatively to the save money div. And now we can use the top, and let's give that like a for now 5 pixels, and we'll do the same for left. So now you'll see it push it like to the right upper corner. And now let's try to put it like right here, so you can see that that blue box is sort of like halfway on the like the top of the div, and it's a little bit to the left of it. So what's now nice, now I can play with my dev tools to actually move that box and see the changes happening. So I'll move it up a little bit like this, and I'll move it a little bit to the left as well. There we go. And I'll just copy these styles and paste them right there. And we'll do the same for the plant. So that will, let's actually put in the same properties, but move it a little bit. So when I go to the design, you see that the, like this leaf, the upper leaf is like kind of like on the same level as the top of the div. And also there is like almost like an equal amount of space between the right side of the div. So let's first move it a little bit to the right. By the way, if you want to scroll like move your right now, if I scroll my mouse wheel, it will only increase with 1 pixel. You can also press Ctrl, and that will then allow it to move with increments of 100 pixels. And if you want to do like some very fine positioning, you can press the Alt key, and then if you scroll, you will scroll with like 0.1, like 1 decimal after the, or 1 digit after the decimal point. But for now, let's try to put it right here, and I will bring down the top a little bit, just like that. I'll copy it and paste it just like that. So now let's tell the save money title. Save money title. So it has a font weight of 600 and just a regular font size, just like that. And I will give it a little bit of margin, like margin on the top, to make sure that it is like below the boxes. And let's also style the save money info. Let's just go right here. So they also decrease the opacity to 0.7. There we go. Probably have to add a little bit of margin top right here as well. Let's do like 0.25 rem. It's not a lot, I think. And now look at this. It also seems to have like a little bit more line height. You can see that there is more space between the individual lines. So as you can see right here, it has a line height of 21 pixels. So let's put that in there as well. Yeah, and I'll just increase the margin top also a little bit. I think it's even, well, that's about right. And I'm just wondering about this. Let's zoom out a little bit. Maybe there's also, yeah, there's also some letter spacing, as you can see. You see that like the individual characters, there's like more space between them. Right here, they're more like closer together. So I'll also add that letter spacing. There we go. That looks a lot better. And now let's style this button. So we have our button, and we can already copy over some styles. So we have the background color. And let's take a look. So first of all, the color of the text is white. And we can actually go to Figma to get those properties. So it has like also a bit of letter spacing, line height, and font weight. I'll just remove the font size, so it makes the font size a little bigger, a little easier to read. So like the bottom, what you see right here is what you often see in apps. So there's like a little bit of padding on the top and bottom, but more on the left and right. So we could do something like heading 1 rem on the top and bottom, 3 rem on the left and right. Let's take a look. All right, so now we want to give it a bit of margin top as well. 2 rem, and that's, I think, a little too much. Let's give it like 1 rem. Let's actually decrease the margin top of the save money div. Right now we set it to 5 rem. Let's bring it down to 4 rem. Yeah, something like that. And now I want to make sure that this button is in the middle. And let's actually take a look at a 1080 screen. So now you see it's aligned to like the left side. So we can bring this to the middle by saying that we want to have give it a width of, well, let's say 50%. And to make sure that the text is like in the center, we can use flexbox again. So say display flex and justify contents center. Perfect. And let's also add a little bit of, well, I think the margin is about right. Maybe add a little bit more margin, like 1.5 rem, something like that. Let's go back to the 1440 screen. So now when I reload this, it seems to be a little bit too small. So actually too big. So I will reduce the, or increase the margin top a little bit right here. Let's go to like the save money div. Margin top, 3 rem. for yeah, something like that. And let's also give it a property cursor pointer, so you will see like the small hand popping up when you hover over it, like this. So that was pretty much it for this design. However, as you can see, when I, for example, go to like a smaller screen, you will see that the content is like actually overflowing our page. So in order to prevent that, and I can show it you right here, is that as you can see right here, we have the expenses overview, which is the right section. And then on the left hand, we have the money overview section. And you can see that the div right here is actually overflowing that section. So we can go up to the money overview class. There we go. And we can add the overflow Y scroll property to it. And now we're actually able to scroll inside of that section. So we get rid of that problem essentially. And the same goes for the, like on the left hand, you see we do not have like enough space to scroll right here. So we can go to the, what was it called again? Expenses overview. And we can give it some overflow Y scroll as well. And now we can scroll right here too. So going back to the original size, I think the design overall looks pretty good. Let's do a side-by-side comparison. I think it looks pretty good. Of course, it's like not pixel perfect, so I can definitely encourage you to go on and try to make it look, you know, like as identical as possible. Or you can even build like, you know, new pages with like your own elements, right? Be creative. And what you can also do is, because right now it's only suitable for, well, you could say desktop screens, like for like 1080, 1440, 7068. But once you go to, for example, iPhone X, it messes up a lot of things. So you could try to write, for example, media queries to make it look good on those kind of screens right here. But to keep the video like somewhat, well, short, I decided to not go for that in this specific project. So let's actually deploy this this app to GitHub Pages, so you can well, essentially create a URL where people can visit this app, so you can put it in your portfolio. So down in the description, you can find a link to the Create React App docs, and in specific the GitHub Pages part of the deployment. So we're just going to follow these steps to deploy our app. So the first thing we need to do is we need to push this the code to GitHub. So I will go to github.com/new, so we can create a new repository, and let's call it dashboard app. Create it, and now we can use the remote at origin and push our main branch to GitHub. But of course, before we do that, right now it will if I refresh, you will see it will only show the initial command, which is automatically generated by Create React App. But of course, to actually make this work, we have to add our code. So if you're in Visual Studio Code, you can use the message right here. So you can put your message, and then you can submit it. But I will just use the terminal for now. So we'll say git add everything, git commit, give it a commit message. We'll say add expense, let's see, sidebar and expenses page. Let's do components. Git push. And now you'll see when I refresh, we get the latest commit in there. So right here, let's follow the docs. We'll zoom in a little bit so you can read it as well. Let's see. So first of all, in the package.json, we want to add a homepage URL for our project that uses our username and the name of our repository. So I go to package.json, and right here we can add like a home page. Let's put it like right here. Home page, HTTPS, and you can actually well, no, you cannot. Let's put it in like so, and then we have, let's see, .github.io/, and of course, if you named your repository differently, you can you have to change the name, but for me it's dashboard app, like this. So I'll just copy and paste that, put that in here. All right, so I will save it, and I will actually make a new commit. So it's a git add, git commit, add homepage URL, just like that. So the next step is to install GitHub Pages. So we can just copy this right here, and I'll get back to you once it's installed. And now we want to add the following scripts in our package.json. So when I scroll down to scripts, I want to add the pre-deploy script and the deploy one as well. I will save it. And now we can deploy it by running npm run deploy. Well, let's do that. And I'll get back to you once it's deployed. So now it is published, and the last thing we can do, this is optional, but I think it makes things extra clear that we deployed it. So we will say git commit, and we can say add GitHub Pages, git push, like that. So now it says step 4, because it's a project page. We want to ensure that the GitHub Pages settings are set to the GitHub Pages branch. So now when you go to dashboard app and refresh, you will see that we also have a GitHub Pages branch. And if we go to the settings, right here down below, we have that Pages tab. You will see that it currently is by default already using the GitHub Pages branch. So that is great. And now when I click right here on the link, you will see we actually have our app. So this is a nice project you can now put in your portfolio or show to people. And having that said, I hope you liked this video. If you did so, please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, because I will be making a lot more React related videos, then please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any questions about the project or other things, let me know down in the comments. So having that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.